Okay, this is part 2 or part B of the chapter 5 Trig review. Because it's a little harder to do this online, what I've done for verifying identities is I've given you the identity. That's what's this in red. And the instructions are just verify the identity by working on one side, either left or right, and it doesn't really matter which one. Except that I'm going to force you to work on this, in this case, on the left side, because I've got the equal sign to the right. So I'll be working down this left side to get to tangent. So there are, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps for this one. You have to tell me the order of the steps. So once you start with this side, sine 2x over cosine 2x plus 1, what would the next step be? Well, you might say, oh, hold it, here's the 2 sine x cosine x, because that's what the sine 2x gives me. But there's another one down here, too. So which one would be better as a first step after this initial problem? Well, if you look at this denominator, you should say, oh, hold it, they've taken that cosine 2x there also. This one is sort of after that. If you say, well, hold it, there's another 2 sine x. Oh my gosh, now I've got 3 choices that seem to be okay for step 2. You've got to use the one that is the smallest step. This one in the middle, letter C, looks like they've added these two together, negative 1 and 1, and gotten rid of it. This one has the 2 cosine squared x minus 1, which is one of the identities for cosine 2x. And this one is just the exact same thing that's up here. So E should have been the next step here. Now you might say, well, I'm just going to write an E, except I would be doing this on a separate sheet of paper because I've got to be able to follow my logic. You'll have to follow my logic. So I'm going to write this down, the next step. I'm going to say it's E. The 2 sine x cosine x, and that's over the cosine 2x plus 1. Because the next step has to follow from that. You're not worried about this initial one anymore. So I think these other two were the choices, right? Because it didn't change the 2 sine x cosine x, but we changed the denominator, which is the next step. So this cosine 2x becomes 2 cosine squared x minus 1. This one, we've done that and subtracted the 1 and the positive 1 and negative 1. So C, or not C, A is the next step. We get the 2 sine x cosine x over, now we substitute it for the cosine 2x, that is in parentheses, 2 cosine squared x minus 1, and then plus 1. Now, the step after that, I think we finally can get to this letter C, because we've added the 1 and the negative 1. So it's 2 sine x cosine x over, combine the 1 and the negative 1, and just get 2 cosine squared x. Okay. So we've got A, C, and E all finished. We need B and D. Which one is next? Well, if you look at D, good studentsmanship says, that's the last step, because that's supposed to match this right side. So I know it's got to be B, but let's just make sure this makes sense. How did I get from this step C to step B? Well, the 2's canceled. One of the cosines canceled with one of the cosines in the denominator, and so we got B, just sine x in the numerator, and the cosine x in the denominator, which gave us this final D tangent x equals. And if you want to, put that QED, because that means quadrat demonstratum, or if you're better at Latin than I am, something like that, which is really going back up to tangent x. We've matched them. Let me do another one. Okay, here's problem 11. It's going to be a little bit tricky just to squeeze all this in here. You can work on the left side or the right side. I'm going to work on the right side. So, the cotangent of A is cosine A over sine A. Hope you can see this fine print. Minus the tangent of A is sine A over cosine A. All over, the cosecant is 1 over the sine of A times the secant is 1 over the secant of A. Well, if that was your first step, then that should be the first step. And remember, you got to follow my logic, so this hopefully makes sense to you. That looks like it's letter C here, right? And make sure when you're all done, you write down these letters in the right order that you figured them out. So letter C. Okay, from there, we can combine these two. We can say with the common denominator, it's got to be sine times cosine. So this needs a cosine, so I need a cosine A times a cosine A over the sine A cosine A minus, this one needs a sine, so it's a sine A times the sine A over the cosine, or sine first, I guess we'll put it, sine A times the cosine of A over, well, this has already got just multiplication, so it's really 1 over the sine of A times the cosine. Now, let's see. Did I skip too many steps, though? Let's see here. I've got the cosine A, so that's this one. That's B. Anything, yeah, I guess that's anything before that? No. C is already done here. So that's B. Okay, B is next. And now we can combine these two. Let's see, we've got cosine squared, right? Minus the sine squared over that common denominator of sine A, cosine A. And that's over 1 over sine A, cosine A. And you got to take these small itty-bitty steps. Is there one like that over here? Looks like letter A. I'm going to run out of room for this. So now when you have a fraction over a fraction, you can invert and multiply. Did they do that? Yes, letter D. They took this numerator and the denominator, inverted that denominator, and multiplied. So without writing it down, I can say that's letter D. After they did that, let's see, well, that one's used. So I've got these last two. It looks like that the sine A, cosine A cancel the sine A, cosine A, and you just have the cosine squared A minus the sine squared A, which is F. And then finally, you've got that left side, cosine 2A, which is E. QED. CBA DFE. So, whatever method you come up with, you're going to have to use something like that, because that's how I've got these written on the online test in my LSMSA. If you have questions, send me an email, danderson@lsmsa.edu.